Hello friends, welcome to Kumar IAS. So we were studying political science, and in political science particularly the political theory, its meaning and approaches. So we'll studying the political approaches and we completed till empirical approach. We were studying the traditional approaches of political science, political theory in particular. So in today's lecture we'll study the remaining traditional approaches, and then if time permits the modern approaches. So without much delay आज की कथा को शुरू करते हैं. So the next approach is legal, constitutional or the institutional approach. And as you know that political science, it can be said as the study of the state or institution, study of the government and institutions. And the legal constitutional approach is dominant in the subdiscipline of comparative politics. Why? The name itself is the answer, because comparative politics means the comparison between the different constitutions, different polities, between different governments, the states, and so on. So the legal constitutional approach is dominant in the comparative politics discipline, and we'll study comparative politics in detail in later on in the same series of political science. So there is nothing much to explain about it. Like we can say that Aristotle, we can see the origin of legal constitutional or institutional approach in Aristotle. Aristotle studied the constitution of more than 145 countries, and then he gave the theory of constitution. So we can see the origin of legal constitutional approach in Aristotle. And then in comparative politics, when we'll study the comparative politics, we'll see a lot of examples of legal constitutional approach, like comparing the constitutions of the third world countries and prismatic societies. Many concepts will come later on. So more about legal constitutional approach in the upcoming lectures. Then overall criticism of the traditional approaches. What are the criticism of traditional approaches? So traditional approaches are called armchair theories. Armchair theories means the people just sitting in the ivory towers. Ivory towers means those who are giving theory are here and the actual reality is here. So there is lot of mismatch between the reality and the theory itself. So it is said that they are just armchair, like the old person, he's just sitting in this kind of chair, and then the chair is just, he's relaxing and giving theories, theorizing, thinking and theorizing. My pardon for my sketching skills, my diagrams are not so good, but nevertheless the armchair theories are given just by philosophers at the philosophic level. There is, like for example, we can see the Plato's theory of justice. So it is criticized many times that it is not conforming to the reality, and then the next criticism is that traditional theories are value loaded and biased. I hope no need to explain. Still, if you have doubt why, please see the previous lectures. Still, if you have doubt, please do ask in the comment box. I will personally answer them. And the next criticism is that they are not concerned with the present. They are static. They are not dynamic, because there is no element of current prevailing situation, which is the essential part of empirical approach. So it is not in the case of, like most of the traditional approaches. In empirical approach there is definitely some dynamism is included, but for example historical approach, there is no dynamism in that, and apart from that philosophic approach, there is no dynamism. In the words of critics, the counter argument may always be there. So it is said that the traditional approaches are compartmentalized and they do not integrate. For example, you can give example of economy, environment, and science and tech, you can say, they do not integrate all the disciplines, and they study everything in compartments, different compartments. And environmental politics, and you can say the society also to some extent, for example feminism, personal sphere, so that is not existing in the traditional theories, and modern theories do consider feminism and all these concepts. So in that sense it is static and compartmentalized. So due to these weaknesses or these criticisms should be on your tips, that they are called armchair theories, value loaded, not concerned with the present, then they are static, and they are compartmentalized. These keywords are more than sufficient, 6-7 keywords, and one line, you need not to explain more than that. So now due to these weaknesses, the first decline of political theory happens. Why? Because the traditional approaches are not concerning with the present. And after Second World War, the political scholars were ignored from the conferences. Why they were ignored? Because it was thought that the traditional political theories no longer give answers to the prevailing situation. Like the World War II could not be explained by any traditional theory. So what is the use? If you do not give any theory which is relevant in the present, then what is your use? You are just a waste of time. So they were not invited at all, and it gave, some sort of introspection, the opportunity for introspection to the political scientist, and it was called as the first decline of political theory. David Easton and Alfred Cockburn, they called it a state of decline. Robert Dahel and Peter Laslett, these scholars are quite important. You should remember them because they will be used in answer writing. So Robert Dahel and Peter Laslett, they call it the death of discipline, that political science is no more relevant, it has died. And David Easton says that traditional theories are having just centuries old ideas, there is no new theory. There is no new theory despite social upheavals, and this social upheaval, one of the major social upheaval was Second World War. And David Easton blamed historicists like Dunning and Sabine, because both of them, Sabine says that historical approach passes the three crucial tests, and that's why it is the most important approach for political theory. But David Easton says that the scholars like Dunning and Sabine are the reason for decline of political theory. And the David Easton also blames the institutionalists like Casey Viere and Dicey. Casey Viere and Dicey, you must have studied them while if you studied Constitution in Lakshmikant. So he blamed institutionalists because they overlooked the dynamic aspects of politics. They didn't take politics as a process. So they just ignored politics as a process. They didn't take dynamic views like Machiavelli. He gives traditional advices, but there was no dynamism in that which can explain the prevailing situations of World War II. फ्री का ज्ञान थोड़ी चाहिए, बैठ के वो तो कोई भी दे देगा. That's what exactly the argument of David Easton was, that these theories are no more relevant at all. So we have to build new theories. We have to bring in the new dynamism, the new vigor, the new scientific rigor in all the theories. And that's why they says that the political theory in the traditional sense has declined completely. And this is called as the first decline of political theory. Now about this is second decline of political theory, I will tell you later on. Before that, I will explain you the modern theories, at least the initial behavioral movement of the the modern theories. Then only you can understand what is the second decline of political theory. So we will come later to the second decline. Before that, let's see the modern theories. So among the modern theories, the first one, behavioral approach. This is the most important. Most of the time questions have been asked, again and again has been asked. And David Easton is the most important scholar of the behavioral school. So let us see it. Although Charles Marion, he is called the father, but Easton builds upon and he gives categorical vigor, and he just explains everything categorically. He gives all the ideas, he just put the structure in the place. Basically Easton puts structure in the place for the behavioral movement. That's why he's the most important scholar. And Charles Marion is called father. So behavioral approach is all about methodological change. Methodological change. Whatever words you are seeing highlighted by the marker, please mark them. They are keywords and they are very, very important. You should, I should say that you should digest these words. Just remember these words and use them more and more in your answer writing. You can see very clearly on the screen. So methodological change basically means that scientific methods should come. And what are the scientific methods? Scientific method means you should be able to verify the things. Scientific basically means that if you say something, there should be some underlying proof for that. It's not कि हवा में कुछ भी तीर मार दिया. If I say that no, this is good, this is bad, and this is like that, according to me, perhaps, these things held no value according to David Easton. So whatever you say, there should be some data, there should be something by that you can verify your theory. That is the basic underlying concept, and it is also inspired by the scientific revolution. Like it is called the age of science, and in age of science always they say give me proof. So proof is the underlying, the most important factor for scientific rigor, and that's what the argument of David Easton was. David Easton says that build the political theory in scientific rigor, bring data, bring statistics, bring facts, and give scientific explanation, not theoretical like justice is the first virtue, not big talks, not in talking shops. So that's what the argument of David Easton was. And it was basically methodological change, because the method is changing. Otherwise the people will just sit in the room on the armchair and give some sort of theory, and it may not connect with the reality. David Easton says this is waste of time. So that's why the aim of the behavioral approach was to make political science pure science. That was the aim. He just went to the another extreme. Earlier the political science was at this extreme. Easton want to make it to that extreme, pure science. Now social science, how it can be pure science? Social science cannot be pure science because there is always subjectivity. Society is not an objective mathematical equation. You will put the variables and answer will come. That's not the social science. But Easton, we can say that had this extremist view. And if we see the evolution of the behavioral approach, there are situational factors and there are intellectual factors. The situational factors is the neglect of political scholars in the conferences after World War II. This was the situational factor which gave some kind of impetus for bringing the new scientific rigor and the behavioral approach. Now, what are the intellectual factors? The Charles Marion and his book, New Aspects of Politics. The intellectual factors are basically dissatisfaction with the state of discipline. Dissatisfaction with the state of discipline. So there are few scholars. Charles Marion in his book New Aspects of Politics. This is the book of Charles Marion, New Aspects of Politics. So he says that there is scientific rigor required in the discipline. Scientific rigor is required in the discipline. Otherwise, the discipline is dead. Then there is another book, Catlin in the book of The Science and the Method of Politics. The Science and the Method of Politics. So Catlin says that there should be value-free analysis. These are keywords. Charles Marion in his book New Aspects of Politics, Charles Marion in the book of New Aspects of Politics, he says that there should be scientific rigor. Then Catlin says in the book The Science and the Method of Politics, New Aspects of Politics and Science and Method of Politics, he says for value-free analysis. Then Lord Bruce, he says bring facts, facts and facts. There are only three things required for political science: facts, facts and facts. On the lighter note, we can say that. Then Chicago School says that politics is the phenomena of power. Politics is about power, then justice. It is the direct attack on traditional theories. The traditional political theories that politics is all about power, then justice. So throw them out, those who are talking about norms and values. So then about behavioral approach, what are the features of behavioral approach? I said that David Easton is the most important scholar because he gives this kind of skeleton. He gives this structure to behavioral movement. He says that there are 8 features. There are 8 main features for behavioral movement, and you should cram these words, just digest these words. What are these 6 features of behavioral movement? Regularity, systematization, techniques, measurement, verification, integration, value neutrality, and pure science. If you cannot remember 8, remember just 3 or 4, but at least have these features. We'll just remember 2-3 times. Regularity, systematization, techniques, regularity, systematization, techniques, verification, value-free analysis, pure science, integration because otherwise they were working in the silos. So integration is required, then value-free analysis, value neutrality, then systematization, there should be systematic analysis, then technique is very important, then pure science, and there should be verification, and there should be regularity. So it's quite scientific also to remember. For scientific technique, what should be there? There should be regularity, there should be systematization, there should be integration of discipline, there should be value neutrality, there should be pure science element, and there should be verification. I hope this is very much clear. Then what is the criticism of behavioralism? The traditionalist scholar, because it is but natural that if the behavioral scholars criticize the traditional approach, the traditionalist will criticize behavior. I mean, that's the human nature. So the traditionalists say that behavioral approach is compromising relevance and scope of the discipline. Relevance and scope. It is compromising on relevance and scope. And the behavioral approach is quite expensive because too much of data collection. And why it is compromising on relevance and scope? Because it is limiting it just in stats, like facts and stats. And they says that everything does not have data, like every political phenomena does not have data. So if you do not have data, you reject. So you reject or you lessen the scope. Like if some phenomena, it cannot be verified in the terms of data, you say that reject. So you are just decreasing the circle of influence. So political theory will have lesser influence. It cannot cover these areas which are purely normative. So the normative areas are completely neglected. For example, justice. Now it is true that justice cannot be measured in the facts, but that does not mean that you should completely neglect justice. Justice is very important factor to study the political science, the political theory, but behavioralists completely reject. That's why Leo Strauss says that value-free research is just like pure water is equal to dirty water. Political theory essential nature is philosophical, and he is quite right in his criticism that you cannot say pure water is equal to dirty water. You have to take side. You cannot say that Hitler is also good, and you cannot be neutral about Hitler and Mussolini. You cannot be. You have to take sides on the evil. So that's what the argument of Leo Strauss was. Then criticism by Marxist. Marxists have very cliched criticism. Always they say that it is ideological project of Cold War, it is conspiracy to counteract Marxist analogy by the West. Whatever, Marxists have always one criticism that it is just the construct of the West, it is just the conspiracy of the West. So Marxists are basically conspiracy theorists, nothing else. And then critical or Frankfurt School, they say that this behavioralist brings instrumental rationality, and man is not man is having multi dimensions, and the behavioral school, they are just making man as an instrument. Man is not an instrument, man is dynamic, but behavioral movement is just making man a machine. So they criticize man for being a machine, and they say that man is behavioral movement is making man's like a machine, and that's why it is promoting instrumental rationality. So that is the criticism of behavioralism. Now, what are the achievements of behavioralism? The achievements are that it substantially increased the study of third world polity and society, because in process of data collection there is lot of study on the third world countries of Africa and Asia, and they were completely out of the picture before behavioral revolution in the discipline of political science in general and political theory in particular. So it increased the study of the third world societies. Then the huge collection of data, definitely, and then it definitely helped in arresting the first decline. I already explained you the first decline. So it definitely helped, and it restored the dignity, you can say, the primacy of the discipline, at least for some time. Then its greatest contribution is to study the electoral behavior and politics of the developing area. Study of third world countries I already mentioned. So that's what the achievements of behavioralism. Now behavioralism also too much focus on data. Like behavioralism led to too much focus on data. Like Lord Bryce wanted just facts and facts. It led to hyperfactualism and ideological reductionism. अति हर चीज की बुरी होती है, जैसे कहा जाता है. So that's how it led to hyperfactualism and ideological reductionism. Okay, and that's where come the concept of second decline. I told you that I will explain the second decline after explaining the behavioralism. That's what the reason is, because second decline of political theory is due to the hyperfactualism and the ideological reductionism of political theories behavioral movement. Behavioral movement lead to the second decline of political theory, and it is due to behavioralist and overemphasis on scientific techniques, and it led to mad craze for science. These are keywords, you should definitely remember them. And it compromised in terms of scope and relevance. It compromised in the terms of scope and relevance. It led to the second decline of political theory. Now after the second, to arrest the second decline of political theory, there comes the post-behavioralism. Post-behavioralism we will study in our next lecture. So we hope that you are liking our videos, and it will definitely add value to your civil services preparation. If you find them useful, please like the videos, please subscribe the channel, and please spread the word like wildfire, because everybody cannot afford costly coaching in Delhi. And friends, if you have any question, please do ask in the comment box. I will personally answer them without a doubt. So thank you so much for coming to S. Kumar IAS. Till next class, stay connected and work hard.